G'day guys, and welcome to a recap of last week. Pretty eventful week with lots happening, so we'll get stuck straight into it. Small winning week, not much in it, and after a good start, nothing really went our way, especially towards the end of the week, so probably lucky to get out of it slightly in front. And we battle on. Monday, 28th of August. Dubbo, first selection of the day was the two horses in the one race. Luckily got away with the win here. The two horses were Bazara and Dapra. Originally wanted just to back Bazara in the race, and Dapra was a late starter. The reason why I wanted to back Bazara was it had the good setup in the 2013-14. Sorry, back up to the mile. It led and kicked away. Quick look at this. No, wasn't happy with that. So it led here, kicked away, had full control of the race until very late. It was down the outside this day at Forbes, so you can see that he's in front, right to the post basically. Beaten into third, dropped back in distance, looked likely to race on the speed again here, which didn't eventuate, and that was why I liked Bazara. The reason why I liked the winner was a little bit different. I put a line through its first 5 starts with the old trainer. It was beaten out of sight a lot of times. It then came back off a year break in a decent enough race, and he's drawn the inside here. So he didn't show that he showed a bit of speed, enough speed over a shorter distance. We're talking 1100 metres here. You can see that he's quite keen. Races in restricted room throughout. He over races. First up, obviously, from a long break here. And thought that considering he didn't get a lot of room, his effort was pretty good. You can see that he gets a bit of a late rails run and whacks away and looks fairly one-paced. So he looks like he's fairly strong, considering quite a few things have gone wrong there, but probably needs a little bit more ground. He then went to Gunnedah, his next start, from a outside gate, middle gate. This is him here. And we'll see, after being up there early and looking to find a position, he gets completely eased out of the race and squeezed out, ends up an absolute mile from here, back absolutely last. So whereas he could have been sort of in this first 4 or 5, and this was a day where the fence was absolutely on fire and it was very difficult to run on from back in the field. So this is him coming through from back in the field, switching around heels there, racing greenly. He gets down the outside. He's beaten an absolute mile, but you could see there was plenty of merit in his run, and obviously he should have been racing a lot closer and finished off quite well. So that was second up, 1400. He then drew gate 1 today. Jockey change wasn't a big difference. Up to 1400 metres I thought was, because that was quite a fast race too, and they ripped home there. You'll see they come home about 7 lengths quick. I think that'll be a really strong form race. There's another horse we see tomorrow, I think, come out of that, or later in the week. Anyhow, it's going to be a good form race, I think. It came out of that, drew 1. I expected it to race closer, hopefully third the fence, and as it turned out, the horse here, he's drawn 1. Good ride to show a bit of urgency and stamp a bit of authority on the race. He led. The other horse, Bazara, we hoped to lead, didn't lead. Luckily the other one jumped in front for us, and he's pretty green, but always looked like he'd run a race from the position he was in. It wasn't a too strong a race as it turned out, and he pretty much dominated all the way throughout. It was good find at, I think, around $12, well backed into about $6 come race time, so he was well found by the market and us, and a good result. So that was a good start to the week. Our other horse was in race 5. Magic Over the Bay, well publicised. While we liked it, it was coming out of two starts back. It was very unlucky. 3 starts back, sorry. Then we backed it at Tamworth, or 2 starts back before this run. Very unlucky. It went up to a mile and came underneath the leading pack, underneath the winner, who came down the extreme outside at Tamworth. Showed why we kind of liked it. He was in a position here, Greg Ryan, to get to the outside, which was the clear best place to be, and he had no eyes to follow any of these runners wide. He just wanted to come inside at all costs. The winner and second horse come right down the outside. This horse has won again since. Magic Over the Bay come up the inside and was beaten, so that was out to the mile. He came back to the 1400 in what looked a pretty strongly run race here, which turned out to be much better race than I thought it would be, and that was why we liked him. He ends up here. This is Magic Over the Bay on the fence. Another horse that drew the inside and was likely to position up a little bit closer than normal. He was a bit held up in between runners here and never really looked to get balance, but I thought he definitely had his chance if he was going to be strong. It was going to be back to the 1400 today. He seems to have lost his turn of foot and possibly looking to get out to a mile and plus, but he's not a horse I really want to follow. Just like Bazza in the first, I probably should have mentioned it. It looked to find its race. You'll see that he just whacks away at his 1 speed. He definitely had his chance, and for the price he was a little bit disappointing. There's no doubt about that. The other race we bet in on the day was at Coffs Harbour, last race of the day. It looked a 2-horse race on paper, similar prices, sort of between $3.50 and $4 for Princess Lottie and Northern Night. We backed one, saved on the other. Went the wrong way. They both had very strong winning form, their last 2 starts. That was why I liked them. The reason why I liked Princess Lottie a little bit more is because I thought she had a little bit more speed. She might be able to cross and dictate, and I thought she'd been hitting the line like a horse that was looking for 1200 metres. You see that she jumps clearly in front of Northern Night, but just a little bit more urgency from Northern Night, and finds a great position right behind the leaders here, whereas Princess Lottie sort of gets stuck in no man's land and ends up sort of outside leader, 3 wide, drops back, then loses the turn a bit, ends up washing out on the turn there, whereas Northern Night gets the split. Princess Lottie looks to lose about 3 lengths there with horses from behind it coming in front of it when she could have easily been outside leader or leading for mine and up here. She's quite strong on the line. She's done a good job, Belinda Hodder, to win the last 2 starts, but I probably think to get to the next level she needs a little bit better rider on it. Not better is probably a bad word, a stronger rider to get the most out of her. Very nice horse, the winner, and just went the wrong way. But still, no damage done on the race. Tuesday, Tamworth, just the 1 bet for the day, race 4. The reason I liked this horse, Winner's Lane, was simply because it was coming from much stronger form lines. I thought its effort when it went from 1,000 metre maiden, where it was totally unsuited out the back in a really fast run race on a day that the rail was out and it was difficult to run on. Treat that as a barrier trial, went straight to town, 1,400 metres, beaten 2.9 lengths by Naviro and Amalia in another strong race. And Amalia came out and won her maiden by 8 lengths off that run. Then it went to town against Cedric Quebec Calculated Condor. Absolutely nothing went right there. I actually expected at 100s myself that day in town. Then had the 45 days off with a barrier trial in between. Drew an outside gate here, which I thought was handy for it, that it would just press forward and find an on-pace position and be too strong for them. We did save on the race on Bangkok. It was coming off a luckless run at Taree. The favourite looked a huge risk. Couldn't understand why it wasn't $5, $6, $7. It was even money. This was the horse. Our horse here sort of hesitant in the start. I think for whatever reason he decided that he wanted to go back on it. Luckily, kind of made the decision early enough before it was too late to press forward when he was looking like being caught 4 wide or having to restrain way out the back. It was just a little bit lucky that a couple of others grabbed hold and Buckley decided to push forward. The horse never races too generously from that outside leader position. Hangs on the turn and never really looks comfortable Bangkok coming up the fence, favourite dropping out. Bangkok looked a little bit unlucky, but I really do think Winners Lane would have held him no matter how far they went. I think he was clearly a superior horse, and even though he just looks to have held on there, I do think that there's plenty of upside in him, and I think that he'll be going through his grades in that area after sitting outside the leader on a solid tempo there and getting away with a maiden. Went the right way that day, luckily, so another good result, with it firming quite heavily in from, I think, around the $4 mark from memory, maybe a little bit short of 5-2 into about the 5-4 mark. So a good result there. Canterbury on the Wednesday. Another race where back 2 in the race, and unfortunately again went the wrong way here. Lights just looked to get a nice cold sit. I wasn't 100% sure that Fager would roll forward and sit outside the leader, otherwise I'd probably go the same way. The reason I liked Lights here was simply because it was coming again out of a stronger race. It was coming out of the Minari race first up. I thought everything that could go wrong for it did go wrong there. It was obviously, listed back to a maiden. It mapped to get the soft lead here around 1100 around Canterbury. First race of the day. Always, this is Lights in here. You can see that he had the tempo to go with the horses like Siege Quebec Benari, Overshare, I believe the name of this horse is, who's gone on to win a black type race in Melbourne. So it was pretty strong looking form. You can see he just gets keen here, over races. We'll show it getting checked out of the race here and completely checked out now and beaten a long way. So I thought coming to this race that the horse would have favours in the run. It would lead and have its chance. It'd be fitter for the 1100. I thought it backed up a little bit quick off a pushed out trial into that last race, so there was more upside there, and now it was going to get plenty of ticks. Fager, I thought, had the opposite, had the good grounding, and I was just not sure where it was going to be in the run. If I thought it was outside leader, as I said, I would have marked it a clear favourite, simply because it had that better grounding. It had the 2 11s already in solidly run races, sprint home. Last start it was strong to the line against Fager. Showtime's obviously come out and won since against, and Songline just out sprinted them there after controlling the tempo. So with the blinkers on, outside gate, really hoping it went forward, but didn't think it was guaranteed, and that's why I went the other way, knowing that Lights was a very strong chance of leading. So obviously Fager was positively written out, so was Lights. They've controlled the race. Just looking at the times, they've run good solid time all the way through, so it was forced to work Lights, whereas I was hoping it would control the tempo a bit more like Songlight did. And even though it's kicked for home and shown plenty, it did look the winner here, but it just out toughed late by probably a stronger horse. He does look the winner even here, Lights, but he just ties the last bit. The horse to follow from the race for mine's Hong Kui Gong. I believe Fager's already on its way to Hong Kong, or well on its way to being sold and racing in Hong Kong. So Hong Kui Gong is the horse going forward. I think just the way it's really hit the line late against the perceived pattern there, which is always difficult to run on over that track and distance. So a small, I think it was a chop out on the race actually. I don't think there was any profit, no loss. Race 5 was our next race. I anticipated a fast tempo here and hoped that either the leader could hold on in Virilio, or I thought it'd be an evenish tempo. Sorry, it came out a bit faster, and I thought if it was to run on, that Midnight Delight would be the one to run on. The winner, Nocio, was backed. The reason why I like these horses, sorry, I keep forgetting to do that. I thought Virilio was hard fit now. It had raced in some good races. Obviously had the 4 runs back. It was coming back from 2 Saturday runs in a row to a race where it looked like it could lead and was hard fit for the 15.50. If it got its own time in front, I thought it was good value around the 16-1 mark. The reason why I like Midnight Delight, it had different form lines to the rest. I didn't like Fortinsky and a few others. I thought most of them were risks. I thought the fast tempo would suit it, and it was coming out of a really strong maiden at Beaumont, which hadn't been tested, but it was up to 15.50, which I thought was suitable. Probably would have liked it to have a 15.50 to be extremely confident, especially with the fast pace, but that was enough, I thought, around the $5 mark to have the gamble on it. Just about every chance. This is it here, back on with the winner on its inside. This is the winner here, Nocio. We're on the outside here in the white cap. The other horse is in front. been tested up. He'd been softened. Fair enough that he doesn't win. Midnight Delight gets to the outside. Really did look the winner here for me for a couple of strides. I thought it was just going to sort of wind up and go straight past him, but no, she cuts through the gap too strong. Midnight Delight's obviously peaked on its run here and just whacks away. Good effort from Braces. Fortensky battles away, and that was that. Every possible chance. The winner, Virilio, ran well for its price, was taken on and was out of business pretty early. Our last bet for the day was a horse called Cannon Run. Each way mainly was a 1 unit the win, 3 units the place, so 3 times the place the win. I expected it to be back last. Blinkers off was the issue, but I thought around the $6 mark the place it represented good value. I anticipated a fast tempo, which it ended up being, but the time they ran was quite strong and they didn't weaken quite as badly as I hoped. This horse was first up. Here he is here last. Just struggles to sort of hold his spot there and doesn't get that inside run so that he can continue that momentum. He gets held up through here before eventually switching inside a couple of runners here and winding up. Just needed him to be able to wind up from the turn to make sure he was a good thing for the place. He just struggles to run down Gerald Ryan's leader, and he gets him about 2 yards after the post, which doesn't help us. So his effort was good. It wasn't a bad bet, but unfortunately we didn't collect. So all in all, you know, I think with the right way, got the better value about the horse in the first on this day. The bet was okay in race 5. I've got no issue with it. I think the price was right. The horse just was a little bit disappointing, or maybe 1 run short. And the value bet in that race was justified. Race 6, I think, it was a very solid bet that I'd be happy to have more often than not, and think he'd definitely get away with that placing more often than not. Just probably the blinkers off was the difference between definitely collecting or not, and not getting that little bit of luck around the home turn, which was always going to be needed. Nothing on the Thursday. Friday we went to Wyong. Race 2 we back to Roughies, very similar to Cannon Run. Just the reason why I liked this horse was College Romance was its name, was simply because it was coming out of a race that was horrendously slowly run, so nearly 10 lengths slow to the 600 and 12.5 lengths quick home from the around Wyong. Nice little tight track. You'll see that the horse jumps nearly in front and is completely restrained out of the race. You'll see there's a pattern with me liking these sort of horses when they've got speed but it's not used, especially in these short courses, and then they step up in distance. It was ideal that they went terribly slow here, and another thing you'll see with this rider here is when he's got a chance to get on the back of the Cerise horse here, he just sort of sits 3 off it, so that's another couple of lengths he's cost the horse in the run. They've come home ridiculously quick, so of course this horse just can't run on. He's back here and doing his best, but unfortunately given absolutely no chance whatsoever. You're treating it as a glorified barrier trial. Went to 1200 metres, got the rider change from the junior to the senior. Drew barrier 1 in a race where it looked like he was very likely to get on the back of a leader who was hard in the betting. So he was going to get the right trail to improve. Again, he was not huge confidence about him being a winning chance, but expected. But I actually don't think this was a bet on the day. I don't think it was a suggested bet. It was one that I wanted to have, but it was 3 placings down to 2. So actually I might have gone off a bit early here and it wasn't a selection. Anyhow, that's okay. He jarred up apparently, so just be forgiving of him, and I'd throw him in your black book if he goes around at big odds next start, whether it be this prep or whether he goes for a break. I'd be very kind to him for that run. I think he can improve and has better form than what it reads on paper currently, and we could get a price about him. Race 4 concisely. Expected him to lead, then possibly Coys to come around and take it off him. Unfortunately, Winona couldn't hold her horse, and it eventually over-raced and took us on. We then had Adkins whip around and chop us out of the race. The horse pulled up lane and obviously ran far below expectations. The leader kicked and won. Here he's back here. Not much I could do about it. The race kind of didn't pan out ideally anyway. I was hoping he'd lead or like initially, or Coys would go straight to front, which lob straight outside it, control the tempo and be hard to beat. it definitely worked out that was the way. Coys probably went better than I expected, and obviously the horse hasn't, or wasn't well with the horse, so it hasn't finished the course anyway. The other bet for the day was Lightning Nick and Paruli at Goulburn in race 7. Simply the reason I like this is this horse, Don't Give a Damn, was into $1.40. It was the first starter that hadn't trialled for, I think, 6 weeks before this. It had a 1-800 metre trial that we'd seen, and then was going to a 1,300 metre race first up. Danny Williams' horses can be a little bit susceptible first up, and I didn't expect him to get the cruisiest time that he did here in front either. Set a solid enough tempo. Paruli cops a terrible ride, blinkers on first time. I thought he'd probably settle a little bit closer and might be a bit sharper. Lightning Nick had some good form first up, was a bit of a query, but thought he was worthwhile taking on here, and did think he'd get the winner when he got this inside run. When he switched off heels, I expected him to near go straight past the leader, but to the leader's credit, it digs in, and Lightning Nick obviously not fit enough to go on with it either. Paruli out the back. It was a marginal race, wasn't one we really bet right up into, but those sort of bets I'm happy to have against, short price favourites on debut with question marks over them, fitness wise and ability wise, off trials. So not too disappointed in the betting there. Race 1, this is a race that I'm kicking myself for. Extremely strong race. It ends up being 1,300 metres first up. I picked a horse called Beau Jest off some really nice trials. I probably let a personal opinion come over the top of my head here a little bit too much, just giving him too much credit for something he hadn't already done. I really loved his first start in a race. What I loved about it was the last 100 metres of the race, nothing more than that. What I love is what he does here, the last 100 metres and even the last 20 metres. So when he just looks to be finding gears through the line is what I loved about this horse. I've been waiting for him to come back. He'd had the 740 in the 1,000 metre trial. That I thought was enough. I thought he might lead. I definitely didn't think Super X would lead, and good credit to Mark Newnham and his team for not only leading, but leading at a fast tempo and really putting Beau Jest to the sword, even though he had the cover behind him. It was obviously a very physical, taxing race. The margin showed that, and the very strong horse, Morovia, being the only one closing hard, is another pointer to show how strongly they've run this race. So the times have been verified now, and it looks a very, very strong 3-year-old race. I'm not disappointed in finding the winner. I'm disappointed in not telling everyone to take the $4.60 saver of this horse, and by the time I got to it, it was into $3.50, and it was too short for us to really get out of the race. Should definitely not have been losing on this horse. It had the better setup, obviously has great form, and is a force to be reckoned with going into the Magic Millions in January if all goes well with his spell and preparation leading up to that. Second and third horses, he can be followed with confidence. Fourth horse probably needs to go back in grade, and even the ones back in the field, if they find the right race, I think this is going to be a very strong form race going forward. We bet in race 2, a very similar bet to that first starter bet we had on the Friday at Goulburn. Wang Wah was into $1.40. Up and Rolling was into $1.40. Started at $1.40. I still can't believe it started that price. Wang Wah's form was really solid, hard fit. Roman Sun had the break, but I expected it to sort of be carved out the back and then allowed to run home. It was heavily backed. It was heavily backed the winner. I did think we had him, and there was an inquiry after the race into the tactics of a few horses in the race. Still, we had our chance to run the horse down. Poor ride on Roman Sun. Dug up early, out of the gates, got over racing, see him here charging between. We're out of business completely by here. A horse that was a bit of a fitness query and needs to be ridden cold. He was jagged up on the speed, and you can see him here just struggling to restrain the horse, spending excess energy he was never going to have. The winner's back here, where the other selections back on the fence. They run along, obviously. Steward's question on the point of the turn here, why this horse lugged out the stablemate to the winner. Asked if he got a call. He said that I was told that whenever my horse is weakening, to ease it to the outside. You can make your own judgment call on that, but it's a very strange thing when you've got horses directly to your outside that you're trying to push them off the track just because you're weakening. I think a very strange one. You'll see the favourite gets the run through. It also aided Wang Wah, our other selection, so definitely not complaining from a results point of view. We had our chance to beat him. You can see here that very good ride from Rachel King. She's tagged the favourite everywhere possible. She's tried to outsprint him, and he's just too strong and definitely a superior horse. She had a better grounding to beat him here, and he's beaten her comfortably. So no excuses. They got it right. The 140 is probably not justified considering where it was drawn and the luck it had to have on the turn to keep that momentum up. But all in all, the better horse won the race. There's no doubt about that. I want that bet every day of $13 Wang Wah, but it was a value play that unfortunately didn't come off. Race 3, Maracaibar I expected to sort of push forward here. I did suggest to people in the chat room to save on Embley simply because it looked like they discussed a change of tactics as well. So, and it was a similar sort of price. I think it started $9. And if it led, it was always going to be hard to beat. The problem here with this race was that the favoured runners were always going to be out the back. It looked a pretty weak race on paper, and often the horses on pace get away with those sort of races, and that's what Embley has clearly done here. Maracaibar's pulled up lane, goes for a spell. Not all well with him, and not much we can do about that, unfortunately. When he didn't get control from the complete front from the lead, I thought that Abdullah should have had a better go for the front there. And once again, he was kind of handled, and you see him getting over racing. They've gone slow from this point, so no excuse tempo-wise, apart from would have really preferred him in front on the fence if possible. But definitely we weren't in the race. He's pulled up lame and he's going for a spell. No real use talking about the rest of the race there, and the unlucky part, I'll go through that in a review at a later time. Last bet for the day at Randwick was race 4, the highway race. There were a couple of horses in the betting here that looked a bit too dominant. Count Kamani was about $2.80 early, ended up getting out. Anticipated quite a strong tempo here, and luckily we got it. We got a great ride from Bowman. The reason why I like this horse was it was strong, had a good fitness grounding to it. 16 back to 14 at Randwick I like. The other horse we backed in the race was Superstar Bob, where I expected him to be heavily backed, which he was. And if he was on song, he would be too good for them. The Mounting Yard guys kind of put the ice water on Superstar Bob like they did a few weeks ago, and said he just doesn't look the same horse this preparation. So it will be interesting to see what happens, because he did have every chance here. My Taggerson gets eased out at the start. Superstar Bob up on the tempo. Great ride from Bowman here. You can see that if he has to come wide, he's going to have to go really wide. After he's held up last race, it doesn't stop him looking inside for runs here. And while Superstar Bob's coming down the middle of the track, My Taggerson's done no work in the run. He's cutting between runners here, and that mile back to 1400, he was always going to be strong to the line. And I thought he went quite well. Few unlucky horses, but that's always the way in this sort of race, and the price we got about My Taggerson was really good considering an anticipated fast tempo. We got Bowman, and everything went to plan there. Superstar Bob probably had his chance, raced a little bit close to the tempo, and probably wants a mile, but just doesn't look the same horse at this point in time. We had a couple of bets at Hawkesbury as well. First race, Augustus, they went ridiculously slow here, and he was able to overcome a slow tempo. You see him here, he misses the start. He's out the back here. So he's come from a slow 15 lengths slower than average to the 600 metres, which is, they don't go much slower than this. He's back in the field over racing. They come home 10 lengths above average, and here he is here bustling, trying to force gaps. He's got horses all with full momentum. He's the only one still trying to wind up, and even here you'll see that he's being out sprinted, and it's only very late does he become dominant. Best horse in the race by a long way. Serious horse, definitely a Saturday horse minimum, and he is a very nice horse going forward that will win more races. The reason I liked him was because he came out of that race behind Pandemonium last start. When we backed him, he was tragically held up, a mad momentum horse. He had the pace in his favour there last time, whereas this time he had it against him, so I can imagine that he goes very close if he doesn't get held up last start. And he did a good job to run Pandemonium to a length and a half, who was shut down a little bit, but I really do think he would have got him if he had every chance in the run. And that was why I thought he'd be dominant here, and he was. Race 4 was our other bet at Hawkesbury. The reason why I like this horse was off some good trials. I tipped it in the chat room. Its first started about 15 to 1. It ran 4th. It got checked not far from home there after showing decent enough speed. He allows the others to go past him here and gets up on the inside. The inside was no good. Behind the leader here. We'll see him try and force out here. Gets knocked back in. Not easy for a horse to deal with interference like that. It's first start in a race and know what's going on. Whacked away. Obviously first up 1200 is not easy either. Back to the 1100, a much easier race. A favourite that looked a good risk off a short course trial where it looked to over race. And we got the lead, and very, very convincing winner by 5.2 lengths. I think we got about 5 to 2, so I wish more of them won like this. The horse will go on and win more races, there's no doubt, but this was a very suitable race just the same. We'll get further than 1100 too. You see that it sprints, but it does look strong to the line. Nice enough horse. Sunday Mudgee. Don't really want to relive this, but will. Do want to show the Moree one as well, which was just as bad. First betting race was race 3. Probably erred here because I identified Torio's Delight as a horse that wasn't going to be completely suited by 1400 metres. I thought that Marniro was close to a very, very good thing. Where it was going to be positioned in the run was the issue, and the amount of pace on paper. If they turned it into 1100, 1200 metre race and sprinted home, she was a little bit vulnerable. Otherwise, she was going to sprint over the top of them. Torio's Delight, the reason why I liked it was just her form overall. It was just clearly superior to these two. You could see that he'd fitted it with 2,000 metre trials off a 79-day break. Forgiving those 2 runs, the form was just better than these horses, and 1400 metres is right up her alley. She's obviously won over 2,000, so this was not going to be an issue. The rider was suitable considering that she likes to ride them cold. The inside was good, she was drawn inside. It just ticked nearly every box known to man, and when this horse jumped and sat third the fence, I nearly had a heart attack. I thought this horse will win by 10 lengths. You'll see it here. Torio's Delight goes to the front, and we're on its back, and I thought, well, there is no way on planet Earth we're not collecting here. I cannot believe how slow he's tried to go on this leader, and eventually gives up the lead. All he has to do is lead in an even tempo. Marniro sits on its back. Now he gives it up to Morsation, who never really wanted to lead but was forced there because they were going so slow. Now we've got Torio's Delight in the outside leader position, which is the worst possible position for it, out to 1400, and Marniro boxed up. Still, you can see Marniro's going well enough to jump over the top of them if need be, but unfortunately the girl is just completely passive, too passive. I don't know how to say it. I'm that watching it upsets me that much, but she should have been far more aggressive earlier to get to an outside position, wherever it be. Here, forced to the outside of Torio's Delight, who she was on the back of originally. She's going well enough to take any run she wants. You can see she's clearly in front of this horse in the red here, so she could have been on Torio's Delight's back and to the middle now. Now she's searching for runs. This horse down the outside's got all its momentum up. It's just a one-pace thing. You'll see she stopped in her tracks again there. Nearly comes in and kills Morsation on the way through. Still balancing up here. You see she hasn't even hardly touched it. The horse picks up after the line, and you'll see here in the run through, it's in front 60 yards after the line. Run away from the winner even though they're easing up. It's always a great sign to see this horse here running away from them. So you won't see a better thing beaten than that. We got $5.50 I think, or $6, maybe $6. It started 6 to 4, $2.50. You won't have better bets than that and not collect. Anyway, this is not much more different. Okay, so race 6, we had 2 bets here. Magic Zeriz, a fast run race anticipated. We got the fast run race back from 16 to 14. The horse is absolutely airborne. The rider was the query, but she handled the horse last start well, so we're happy to take the punt on it. Firmed up again in betting. The other thing we backed in the race was a horse called Pippi's Pride. Its query was jumping from 1,000 to 1,400 metres second start, but it was 25 to 1, so more than happy to take the risk on the price there. both looking to be strong horses. Unfortunately, you can see Magic Zariz here, totally negative at the start. The other horse we're on's in the black with the red cap. You can see it, she's trying to physically restrain this horse for half the race. You can see it completely over racing. The other horse we're on's on 3 wide and last. You can still see Pippi's Pride still being fought here, and the other horse running up its backside. You can still see Pippi's Pride over racing terribly. The other one's on its back. The most incredible thing we'll find here is that neither of these, Pippi's Pride doesn't get to the outside. It's the one horse that has the perfect position to take off whenever it wants. You can still see it's still fighting this rider, the horse. All it wants to do is slide, and it doesn't. Magic Zariz is still being held up as well. Comes right to the outside, circles everyone. Couldn't have done more work if it tried. Pippi's Pride in behind here, being held up. Turn a foot here, you just think Magic Zariz is going to pick him straight up, and as soon as she looks completely the winner, she loses the horse's head, it ducks in, and she can't ride the horse out. So I don't know what happened there, no explanation. That's on this horse of Magic Zariz. It just looked the winner, and for whatever reason she lost control of it with 100 to go. And Pippi's Pride, our 25-to-1 chance, is here after fighting the horse the whole way, jumping 1,000 to 1,400 metres. She still had the guts to be running into dead ends here. You'll see she's never got galloping room. Even here you can see she's only got a half a gap, no room at all. She's beaten a length. If you don't say this horse should have won, that horse should have absolutely lapped them at 25-to-1. So we've had absolutely no luck again on the day. I know it sounds like I'm whinging, but if you can't see from the vision that these horses were just dramatically unlucky, you can see this horse, he's already nearly hit the front coming from last and somehow pulls up. If that horse is not in line with the winner, I don't know what the hell happened. This horse is coming off a mile win the start before, dropping back in distance. It's not possible for it to be weak on the line unless there's something wrong with the horse. The rider's just lost total control of it, and this horse, Pippi's Pride, has just had absolutely no luck whatsoever the whole way around, and beaten a length at 25-to-1. So, a sick day where we should have been collecting in both races and had a very strong positive day, and unfortunately we came away a loser. The other race I did want to show you was just as incredible on the day. I tend to be handled days pretty well because I've seen most things happen, but when it was down the outside yesterday at Moree, clearly better, even though some winners came on the inside, I'm guaranteeing you it was down the outside. This horse, Blinking Fast, again pops into a very similar position to Pippi's Pride, where he can track up 3 wide and get to the best part of the track at any stage simply due to where he's lobbed in the run. And for whatever reason, the jockey's got only the eyes for the inside. You can see here now he's given up all his advantage. He tries to get to the outside after he's given it all up. Stopped in his tracks, forced back to the inside. I guarantee you the inside's not as good as the outside here. All the horses have the momentum. You can see there he's galloping in restricted room. He doesn't look happy about anything. He's still able to pick up and put them away. If this horse goes to 1,400 metres next start and finds a similar race where it can actually go forward this time, hopefully they change the rider. And it's not a bad horse, this horse, Blinking Fast. It wasn't a great race. You can see that they're all charged the light brigade, but this horse has got plenty of upside. I guarantee you that there's a lot more merit in his run than you can see here, and with a rider change out in distance, it can be a nice enough horse to go through its grades in this area. There's no doubt about that. So as we've said, slight, I think it was only about a plus 7.5, plus 8 unit week. You know, depending on the prices you got through in the week, there definitely would not be much in it, whether you were in front or behind. The chat room was pretty successful with a couple of extra savers here or there, so if you get your chance to come in there, sometimes there's some late stuff that comes on. Not always easy to get it out to people, just some late things that happen. There's other people helping each other in the chat room. It's been quite popular and going well. Obviously we battle on again this week with some nice races coming up later in the week, and hopefully we'll have a bit of luck. Thanks guys.